Oh, hello. In today's video, we're going to be having another look at Strike Force Justian. This time the review is going to focus around the plastic models themselves, although we will talk about my updated feelings about the rules, as well as a little chat about some proxies that you can do and how hard it is to get hold of these models in various countries. So, the models themselves are, they're really nice individual sculpt character models. Now, they are Games Workshop's monopose, easy to build format of models. So, if you've built one of these before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But there's a lot of internal kind of supports and things and structures. Even like the heads all have like an L-shaped rod in them, and they have to go in at a certain point in the instructions and slot into like an internal socket. And this is all in order to make them push fit, so you don't need any glue. Obviously, you can glue them, and I did glue mine. But they're designed for the new player who may not have access to tools and glue. They're also on the special sprues that are designed to be pushed out with a finger rather than require clippers. Again, I clipped mine, not brave enough to try and push them out with my fingers. But this isn't to say that conversion is impossible. So if you look at my picture here, you can see a couple of conversions that I did for my team. Mostly head swaps, so putting a different head on is totally fine. Just leave off the head that was provided and use some glue to put in a head of your choice. The socket joint for the Space Marine head is still there, and it's the same diameter, so that works fine. On the Assault Marine, you can see that I swapped out an entire arm. What I wanted to do there was add the knobbly shoulder pad, the sort of Mark 6 style shoulder pad to go with the beaky helmet to kind of be evocative of a Mark 6 Marine. So I ended up swapping out the entire arm because the Warhammer Heroes miniatures, the shoulder pads are actually moulded onto the arms. So yeah, you could cut and sort of chisel them away and try and cut down the excess. But it's going to be easier and probably a little better to just replace the entire arm. So just snip off the peg, get a marine arm of your choice, put the shoulder pad you want on it, and replace the arm if you've got access to those sorts of things. Yeah, and that's really it in terms of a review of the miniatures. The miniatures themselves are nice, and they are individually posed. They come on these sort of scenic bases with rocks and boulder casings and stuff, and it's quite clever. Like the one where the guy's reloading his gun, so that the sergeant has the spent magazine is on the base. So they do tell some stories and things like that, which is quite nice. And they look great. They're not exceptional, compared to some of the other miniatures that DW put out, but they look pretty good. I will say you have to drill all the bolters, even on the heavy bolter. If you want the heavy bolter to look like mine, you're going to need to drill it out with a big drill bit. And I know that especially on some of the newer stuff, on some of the heavy bolters, they have been casting heavy bolters so that you don't have to drill the barrels. We're used to having to drill the barrels on bolters if that's what you want to do, but on this one you have to drill heavy bolter as well. I did notice that. Other than that, mould lines and things like that are not much of a problem. Instructions are very clear. Yeah, they're pretty standard. So you may be wondering, well, this is a review of the models. You've spoken for 3 minutes. You've reviewed the models pretty comprehensively. What else are we going to do for the rest of the video? Well, we're going to complain. So, as has been covered a couple of times by me and has been covered extensively elsewhere, these are only on sale in a very limited number of places in the world. And the list of places these are on sale has changed 3 times. So when they initially put out an article, they said they were going to come out in America. Then they put out another article, which was a slightly different list. And then they stealth updated that article to the actual list that you see down the bottom here. So these are the only places where you can buy these. So Canada, GameStop Canada, where they are still in stock, I checked for you, okay, as well as independent retailers in Canada. So your friendly local gaming stores in Canada should stock these. In Germany, it's Muller, where we talked, or Muller, not sure, where we talked about before, where we got the initial release and the rules available to us from, and GameStop in Germany. out of stock in both of those places now. So fully out of stock in Europe, because those were the only two places in the entire of Europe that sold them. Japan, I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, Shurugaya stores, Furuhon Ichiba stores and independent retailers. Thailand is Asia Books, and Vietnam is somewhere called Phaaza. And that's it. They're the only places that you can get these. There was at one point in this article a promise that it would come later to the UK and things, and that promise has been removed. So getting hold of them is difficult. So I managed to get hold of these via a friend of the channel, top tier member, entitled to a shout out, getting it in the middle of a video today. Nightfall, who's also a German guy, and was ordered some of these. Tricky because we had to order them individually. And then I got him to open them all and see, is it a full set, or do we need to go back and buy more, or what's going on? Happily, we got a full set on our first roll of the dice, and he mailed those to me over in the UK. And all in all, with the sort of follow-up, in addition to obviously paying what he paid to get them shipped to him, and then paying the international postage, I ended up paying £63 for these, which is about twice what they're worth, to be fair. Now, a large part of that is that I run the channel, and I knew that I'd be able to talk about them on the channel and share firsthand my experiences of building them. I don't think they're worth that much compared to other things that you could buy from Games Workshop, right? I don't think they're that special or that good to be worth that much money. And it's kind of irrelevant now because you can't get them. But I'm glad that I have them. For the sake of the channel more than anything else. Obviously, you can still get them. If you're an American, you can try your luck with GameStop Canada. You should be able to import them from there. And in Asia, I didn't check the Asian shops because I can't even, the language barrier is really difficult. It's not even the same character set. So, but you can do your own research there. It remains a shame that these aren't more widely available. But there is an alternative solution. So, Glass Half Dead, or Glandy, as we call him around these parts, has done an amazing video about proxies. Now, he really loves, I'm going to say, proxies that involve thematic substitution. So I'm going to use these rules, and I'm going to use them to portray something in the lore that's totally different, right? I'm not the biggest fan of that myself, like, not to the point where I would refuse to play against it or anything ridiculous like that. That would be dumb, but just where it's not personally my hobby, right? But I am interested in coming up with some decent proxies, like some other Space Marines that you could use. So as you can see on the screen, one thing that Andy didn't mention in his video, which I think is a kind of a no-brainer for these, previewed at the Nova Open, was the Command Squad box. Now, the Command Squad box is really interesting because you get a Space Marine captain who can have a plasma pistol and a power fist. Actually, it's quite hard to get hold of a Space Marine captain with a plasma pistol and a power fist. Otherwise, there was I think a web store exclusive, like, anniversary plasma pistol and power fist captain, or you can get the Black Library exclusive, like, white consoles guy with a plasma pistol and a power fist. But this guy comes in the box, right? And alongside that, you get a guy with a heavy bolter, right? So you don't need to buy a box of heavy intercessors. I know technically he's not like a heavy intercessor. He doesn't have the heavy Gravis armor stuff, or basically he doesn't have the big heavy intercessor moon boots. He's just a regular guy with a heavy bolter, but he has a heavy bolter. No problem there, really. And then you've got an assault guy with a power sword. Now, you'd have to swap the power sword out for a chainsword, I guess, but an arm swap. If you look round the back of his waist, he has a holstered pistol. I'm guessing it's going to be a heavy bolt pistol, so it would just be a case of putting a chainsword on there, or just telling your opponent that he's only got a chainsaw, but that might be problematic for, like, model legibility. And then you got two guys. You got the banner guy and the guy with the bionic arm with bolt rifles. I would say you use the bionic arm guy as the smoke grenade guy, because the official smoke grenade guy has a bionic arm, right? So it's easy to remember. This is just a photograph taken in after he's thrown his smoke grenade. And then the guy with the massive banner, like, massive banners, as long as you, As long as you say to your opponent, look, this guy's got a massive banner, can we just agree that the massive banner does not count for visibility? Like, you know, I know that people say, oh, well, if you're proxying, you should be at a disadvantage for your model. I think if you come with a model like this, where it's obviously there's the model and there's a massive banner, and you say, look, massive banner doesn't count for visibility, are we cool? Most opponents will be like, yeah, no worries, massive banner doesn't count for visibility. But he's a guy with the bolt rifles, he can be the sergeant, they're hitting on twos. I see no problems here. You still need to get a sniper from somewhere, and you'll be missing the auto bolt rifle guy if you wanted to have the full roster. But I think this is a really good kit to be aware of, if only because it comes with that captain and that heavy bolter guy that are going to be very expensive to get hold of in other formats. You know, Games Workshop characters bought singly are usually very expensive. So, yeah, I think this is a really great box to be aware of if you're planning a Strike Force Justian of your own. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the rules as well. So, I've done a whole video on this when the Germans started to post pictures of their purchases, because as I've covered in that video, Mueller didn't either they didn't have a street date that they had. You know, my suspicion is because they're a big department store, Games Workshop didn't negotiate the contract with the same stringency, so there just was no street date. I certainly don't think they'll get any blowback from Games Workshop, because, like I said in the other video, these big chains are doing GW a favour by letting them access their customer base. It's a totally different relationship to, like, you know, the Element Games type stores where actually stocking Games Workshop is making that a viable business. These massive companies don't care. So I think calling this one a leak was a bit, for me, like when somebody took photographs of you know, Magnus the Red's packaging that was ripped up in a bin that was behind a locked gate in Lenton, like, that's a leak. That's like espionage. That's like, oh, I'm gonna James Bond in and get my pictures and post them on the internet. That's like a leak. Or like when Valorac's like, oh, I've heard from my guy who's like my inside source in this, that, and the other. That's a leak. When it's just in the shops, that's just the things for sale, right? It's not really, yeah. So I have now played 2 games. Is my point, since I've done that review, where I have some thoughts. I think having 2 opportunities with heavy is very difficult. Strike Force Justian is the only 6-man team that has that problem. Like Legionaries and like the Compendium Space Marine teams, you've got suspensors in the equipment list, and if you take the guy with heavy, you also take the suspensors. You know, and then there's like, okay, Compendium Grey Knights can take a heavy weapon guy, but nobody does. And Necrons are kind of like a 6-man team, but not really. And they can take a heavy sniper guy, but most people don't. And then if you do, at least he's got forward deploy. Like, Strike Force Justian are the only place where they're forced to take a guy with heavy on a 6-man team. So they have the worst board control options in the game. I think that's fair to say. Not by a lot, but by a small margin. So that's rough. You know, to the point where I'm a little bit on the fence about whether, if you wanted to run Strike Force Justian, like, should you take the heavy bolter or should you take the guy with the auto bolt rifle? Now, part of that's going to be determined by the question about, does the heavy bolter have 4 dice or 5 dice, and we still don't know, which is another point. I think if I was to tweak this team, I do think they need a little bit of a buff. I think what I would be tempted to do is to give the heavy bolter like a baked-in suspensor. I don't think that would break the team at all. I think it would. I mean, if you think about it as well, they've kind of got equipment like baked in. Like, you don't have to choose the equipment, but they've got a smoke grenade, and the leader's got a Rosarius. So those things would be about 5 or 6 equipment points for any other team, right? They're just saying, here's your equipment, you didn't have to choose it. If the heavy, in the same vein, if the heavy bolter just had the suspensor printed on his card, like, yeah, it's giving you a piece of equipment, but you didn't have to choose it, so it doesn't ramp up the complexity of the team. If anything, it makes the team less complex and easier to play. Does it then make the team would that change, make them really powerful, and would it really upset the meta? I don't think so. If you are a better player than me, and that's not hard, I recently came last in like a 60-person tournament. And you think that will break, I've just broken the team, then let me know in the comments that I'm full of it. That's very useful to me. I also kind of think that the sniper could have had, if you look at the Kazakin sniper has the ability to fire his sniper rifle as a lasgun, like on the move, or his heavy shot, which is a sniper rifle. I think it's a shame that the sniper could have had a bolt rifle profile on his sniper rifle, so he could move and still fire with his bolt rifle. Would, I think, as well be a little bit of a buff. Those two changes, I think, would just bring them up to the point where they were more middle of the road, competitive-ish, right? Just my thoughts. It's also really interesting that a lot of people were quite sure that we would get a day one update for these. Like, they'd put the rules in a PDF, and the PDF would include a couple of things. So there are two open questions about these rules-wise that we really need answering. The first is the heavy bolter thing. Is it 3 dice or 4? Because it says 3 on the English card, and it says 4 on the... Oh no, it's 4 or 5, sorry. 4 on the English card, or 5 on the Japanese card. So we need to know which it is. I suspect it's 5, because that's what every other heavy bolter has, but who can say? Who can say? And also, they have no archetypes. So, like, we know they're not supposed to have faction tac-ops, and there's been a lot of confusion about this online, where somebody posts, "Oh, where are the tac-ops?" and somebody else posts, "You idiot! Don't you read Warcom? They're not supposed to have tac-ops." And then people are going away like, "Oh, they don't have tac-ops." So I want to be really clear, like, they don't have archetypes, so it's not clear which of the generic tac-ops decks you can use. Right? And that needs fixing. I agree that they're almost certainly not intended to have a special faction tac-ops that you could pick one of in addition to your 2 tac-ops drawn from an archetype deck. But to be very clear, my complaint is that they don't have an archetype. So at the moment, I'm playing them as if they have security and seek and destroy, which seems like it's the likely outcome to me. It could be possible that they're intended to have access to all of the tac-ops, because like access to like recon and stuff with the Phobos guy in there would make a little bit of sense. Some people have said that they have access to no tac-ops and they're just designed to not play the game without secondaries, which they're not really match play legal at that point, are they? Because they're not really able to do all the steps in the pre-game sequence for match play. So those two things, like, I've emailed the GWFAQ Kill Team FAQ article with those 2 questions. I think those 2 questions do need answering before the rules for the team are complete. And like I say, a lot of people were hoping we get those answers today, or yesterday, I should say, which is the official release date of the team. That's it. So I'd love to hear from anybody who was fortunate enough to actually get the official models in hand. Like, what do you think of them as models? Have you built them? How was the process for you? And if you've had any games with them, like first-hand experience, like I've played 2 games with them now, what are your conclusions having played games? Did you win? Did you lose? Do you think they need the buffs that I mentioned? Do you think that'll make them overpowered? Do you think they're absolutely fine, as is, and I just need to learn to play? Like, it's very possible that I just need to learn to play, as discussed. And that sort of thing. Like, do consider, this is where I get my begging ball out, sorry. Do consider channel membership, which is where you pay a small monthly fee. Like, there are some perks to channel membership. You get occasional early access videos and occasional kind of extra editorial type videos, and you get a cool colourful name on the Discord and bits and pieces of that, and a secret room on the Discord where we talk about secret things. But mainly what you do is you enable me to waste money on things like importing models from Germany at near twice the cost that they would have been had Games Workshop released them in the UK, so I can make this video. And that, if that's something you want to enable, then an opportunity exists for you to do that. But likewise, ad revenue is also a thing. So, watching the video and telling your friends that my channel exists, and if they like Kill Team, and kind of laid-back English guys wobbling gently about Kill Team in a non-confrontational manner, then they might like this channel. Or the other option is just make sure you subscribe, because of course if I get another like 8,500 subscribers, then it's possible that James Workshop will notice me and then will send me this sort of thing for free for review. So there are 3 ways that you can potentially enable future ridiculous purchases of things that Games Workshop make it alarmingly difficult to buy. So consider all of those things. And with the sales pitch done, thank you for watching. Thank you for doing any of those engagement-y type things that you've done. And I hope you have a great rest of your evening or day or whatever time it is you're watching this. Bye-bye.